On a crisp autumn morning, the sun rose over the tidy rows of homes in the suburban neighborhood of Maplewood. The soft light touched every mailbox, neatly trimmed lawn, and front porch. Each day, the community stirred to life in small but purposeful ways. A quiet calm enveloped everything: the occasional bark of a dog, the distant ring of a telephone, the gentle hum of vehicles making their way to work. It was a place where neighbors recognized one another's faces, often waved across the street, and sometimes engaged in friendly conversation. Yet they mostly carried on with their lives, each wrapped in a tapestry of daily routine. It was easy to believe that not much happened in Maplewood, that life was measured by the soft ticking of the clock. However, one person saw the true hidden heartbeat of the neighborhood: Tom the mail carrier. Tom was nearing his 15th year in Maplewood, delivering letters, magazines, and small packages to rows of houses that he knew by heart. With a well-worn satchel slung over his shoulder, he strolled the sidewalks with a determination that belied his unassuming demeanor. He was never one to brag or seek attention. People would see him coming, greet him with a cheery, "Hello, Tom," and he would do the same, maybe offer a small wave or tip of his hat. Yet, behind his kind eyes, Tom quietly took note of all the small acts of generosity he witnessed. For years, he recorded these observations in a shabby, leather-bound notebook that he kept tucked away in his satchel. Few ever noticed it, but inside its pages, Tom chronicled the remarkable kindness that happened in the community day by day, stitch by stitch, weaving a hidden record of empathy and compassion. He had started this practice many years ago out of curiosity. Back then, he delivered a letter to Mrs. Pemberton, a widow who had just moved in after her husband's passing. That day, he watched her next-door neighbor, Mr. Bradley, pause his yard work and smile at her. Their conversation was brief, but Tom caught the gentle consolation in Mr. Bradley's voice when he said, "If you need anything at all, just knock." Mrs. Pemberton, elderly and frail, expressed her gratitude with a trembling nod, and Tom saw a spark of hope in her eyes. It was a small gesture, easily overlooked. But in the weeks that followed, Tom noticed how Mr. Bradley often took the time to mow Mrs. Pemberton's lawn and bring in her trash bins unprompted. That was how Tom's notebook began, a simple entry about an act of neighborly care that no one else would ever think to record. Over the years, the notebook became a personal diary of everything that made Maplewood more than just a cluster of houses. Every day, Tom scribbled down comments about the kindness and warmth the residents shared. He noted how the Anderson family would stack their children's outgrown clothes into boxes, discreetly donating them to the church for families in need. He recorded how Mrs. Allen, who taught piano lessons, secretly reduced her rates for struggling students, allowing them to keep chasing their dreams even in times of financial hardship. He detailed the many evenings Mr. Chen, a retired history teacher, spent reading stories to children at the library, his gentle voice radiating reassurance. Nothing was too small to be included. Tom wrote about clever solutions members of the neighborhood found to help one another, like the time a group of teenagers raked leaves in old Mr. Jones's yard without him ever suspecting who did it. He remembered how the local bakery occasionally received anonymous donations that allowed them to surprise single parents with free bread and pastries. Whenever he made a stop there, Tom couldn't help but smile as he imagined the grateful families benefiting from that generosity. And though no one told him about these deeds explicitly, Tom never pried. He knew enough by making quiet observations day after day to piece together a mosaic of interwoven acts of love. In the hush of morning, Tom made his first round of the day, stepping onto the porch of the grand Victorian house belonging to the Carlyle family. Dr. Carlyle was a physician who worked at the local hospital, and Mrs. Carlyle served on the school board. Their two children, Lucy and Samuel, were known for their bright smiles whenever Tom arrived. Hidden behind a tall oak in their front yard, he witnessed Lucy whispering excitedly to Samuel as she carefully placed a handmade "Get Well" card into a large envelope. Tom recognized that the address was for their grandmother, who had recently been hospitalized. The children sealed the envelope and included a packet of flower seeds with the note. He waited a moment, letting the image settle in his memory, and as he walked away with their mail tucked in his satchel, he jotted down an entry: Carlisle kids sending a bit of sunshine to their grandma. A small deed, yes, but it was enough to spark hope. When the time was right, Tom would add the full story in his notebook. Continuing his route, Tom approached a bungalow with a bright red door. A child's bicycle lay in the yard, ordinary enough, yet what caught Tom's attention was the boy sprawled on his stomach near the foot of the driveway, chalk in hand, adding color to the world. His mother, a kind-faced woman named Maria, waved at Tom as he brought the mail. Then, stepping carefully around the chalk drawing, Tom saw that the boy was writing "Spread Love" in big letters, each letter filled with whimsical doodles of flowers and smiling suns. Maria exclaimed with a shy laugh. He just wants people to smile when they walk by. Tom gave the boy a gentle thumbs up, feeling a breath of warmth wash over him at such innocence and goodwill. Later, as he waited for the next traffic light to change on his way to the next block, Tom took out his notebook and scribbled, "Young Sam from Redwood Street uses chalk to fill sidewalk with bright messages of love." Near the end of his route, Tom approached a small cottage belonging to Miss Keene, a librarian with a heart for stray animals. He could see her in the window, carefully placing little bowls of food by the fence for the cats that roamed the neighborhood. She was worried about them getting enough nourishment when the weather turned cold. Tom had often seen her on rainy mornings, standing under her umbrella, calling to the cats, "It's okay, come in from the rain." She rarely talked about it, as if her kindness was simply part of the wind and the air. Slipping a delicate envelope, a letter from a distant niece, through her mail slot, Tom made a mental note. Miss Keene sets out food for neighborhood strays, never fails to care for the lost. The day was filled with these gentle tasks, never announced or boasted about, never expecting applause. Once Tom finished his round and returned home, he rested his satchel on the table and carefully retrieved his notebook to capture each instance he had witnessed. Rows of writings, meticulously dated, lined the pages. Some entries were a couple of words, while others sprawled into paragraphs. Slowly, patiently, he captured the lifeblood of Maplewood. It wasn't just a place, he convinced himself. Maplewood was an evolving community of kindness, even when not everyone realized it. Seasons passed, and with them, Maplewood transformed. In spring, the dogwoods bloomed. In summer, children played catch on sun-warmed lawns. In fall, the sidewalks were piled with crunchy leaves, and winter brought the hush of gentle snowfalls. Through it all, Tom continued his daily records. There were times he felt that certain neighbors missed out on the wonders around them, too occupied by chores, errands, and jobs. Yet each act mattered, no matter how small. And despite the countless reasons for cynicism in the world, Tom's notebook reminded him daily that pockets of warmth and caring existed. Some years after he began his silent chronicle, a moment came that changed everything. On a chilly March afternoon, Tom had completed his deliveries early. He stopped at the local diner, a cozy spot with red vinyl booths and the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Usually he came in for a quick meal and left, but that day he noticed that Miss Murray, who ran the local youth soccer league, sat in the booth opposite him, wiping her eyes. Her burger and fries sat untouched. Tom had never pried into anyone's troubles, but her obvious distress tugged at him. After some hesitation, he approached her booth. "Ms. Murray," he said softly, holding his mail cap in his hands. "Are you okay?" Startled, she looked up. Her eyes were glassy, and her cheeks were splotched with tears. "Oh, Tom," she said, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, just a little overwhelmed. The funding for the soccer league just got cut. I don't know how we'll supply the kids with gear or maintain the field. We have a tournament coming up, and they've been practicing so hard. I feel like I'm letting them down." Tom frowned in empathy. He knew how important those soccer sessions were to the children. "Is there anything I can do? Maybe we can spread the word?" She shook her head wearily. "I've tried. We've asked volunteers, but the donations aren't coming. People have their own responsibilities. It's understandable." Tom nodded, his mind already racing. "Let me see what we can do," he said, though he wasn't sure exactly how. He bought her a slice of the diner's famous cherry pie, left it on her table, patted her shoulder, and headed out. He didn't realize it then, but there was a crucial impetus developing inside him, sparking an idea. That night, in the lamplight of his modest living room, Tom reviewed his notebook. Page after page of unheralded compassion stared back at him. He thought of Miss Murray's predicament, and a longing stirred in him. If only the neighbors could see how amazing they truly were, how each had shown themselves capable of generosity and care. A thought emerged. Maybe it was time someone reminded everyone of who they really were. Tom decided to act. The next weekend, he carefully copied passages from his notebook onto small index cards. Not the private or overly personal details, he respected each neighbor's privacy, but only the public acts of kindness that exemplified the spirit of the place. Then, with each card, he wrote, "Never doubt the power of a single good deed. Maplewood is built on these acts. Thank you." He placed these notes inside envelopes adorned with simple hearts and daisies, symbols of affection and growth. Over a few days, he quietly distributed them around neighborhood corners where people walked their dogs or strolled in pairs. He tucked them into library books, pinned them to the community bulletin board at the grocery store, and left them on the benches in the local park. At first, nobody knew where the messages came from. Folks discovered the cards and read them with curiosity. Some recognized their own deeds in the words. A mother found a note that spoke of the woman who spent her Saturday afternoons teaching local kids how to garden, instilling in them a sense of wonder for living things. She blushed with pride, feeling a flash of gratitude that someone had noticed. A father found a note discussing the man who painted birdhouses and left them around Maplewood so that birds could shelter safely in all seasons. He had never expected recognition for that pastime. In a matter of days, people were abuzz talking to one another about these cards and the goodness they revealed. Miss Murray, meanwhile, discovered a note pinned to the bulletin board inside the diner where she sometimes took the soccer kids for milkshakes after practice. It mentioned her, specifically praising the woman who invests her heart in training local kids, teaching them not just soccer, but confidence and teamwork. Touched, she clipped the note from the board and took it home, stashing it in a special box she kept for mementos. Encouraged, she redoubled her efforts to find ways to fund the league, reminded that the community around her was brimming with generosity. Maybe she could find new supporters, if only she asked in the right manner. The subtle wave of momentum began to shift in Maplewood. People felt a collective stir in the air, something intangible but undeniably strong. When individuals realized others recognized their small acts of kindness, they felt driven to do more. They revisited their personal capacities for giving and generosity. Old Mr. Jones, who until then had never mentioned how the leaves in his yard mysteriously vanished each autumn, decided to buy donuts one morning and leave them at the local fire station as a thank you. The teens, who once raked his yard for free, felt so uplifted by the new positivity that they formalized their small acts of neighborhood cleaning, calling themselves the Maplewood Helping Hands. They started collecting cans for the local food bank, roping in more young people to help out. Tom watched all of this from his vantage point on the sidewalk and in the mail truck, his heart soaring with pride and humility. He was glad to remain anonymous. For him, the act of shining a light onto others' generosity was enough. And yet, word trickled through the grapevine that someone out there was writing these lyrical glimpses of Maplewood's heart, somebody who knew everyone's deeds. Speculation spread, and with it a mixture of excitement and curiosity. Many neighbors tried to guess. Was it the pastor of the local church? Mrs. Allen, the retired history teacher who seemed to know everyone? Eventually, Miss Murray was struck with an idea based on Tom's quiet suggestion. She organized a community event at the soccer field, a day of volunteering with a bake sale and yard sale to raise money for the league. Everyone was invited. Tables were set up with homemade brownies, hand-knitted scarves, secondhand books, and even used bicycles. New banners fluttered in the breeze, proclaiming Maplewood Community Day, a celebration of good neighbors. All proceeds would go toward the soccer program's expenses. Word spread fast, and on the day of the event, an impressive crowd turned out despite a light drizzle. Children ran around in excitement while parents browsed the booths. The band from the local high school played a cheerful tune, and the smell of barbecue drifted across the field. Everywhere he looked, Tom saw a swirl of color and laughter. When Tom arrived halfway through the event, having finished his morning route, He was greeted with warm welcomes and smiles, but he remained inconspicuous by staying near the edges of the gathering. He moved from booth to booth, offering his thanks quietly to the volunteers. He noticed a long line at Miss Murray's booth for donations. As he stood off to the side, trying not to attract attention, an older gentleman he recognized as Mr. Chen approached. Tom, the older man said, adjusting his glasses, "I need to thank you." Surprised, Tom's eyes widened. "For what, Mr. Chen?" Mr. Chen gave a knowing smile. "For your kind words. I found one of those notes tucked into a library book at the reading club. Your mention of my volunteer story time, it really moved me." Tom felt his ears burn. How many others suspected that he was the one behind the notes? Before he could respond, Mr. Chen clapped him on the shoulder. "You have a gift for shining a light on what we too often ignore. Thank you for seeing us," he said simply, and then strolled away, leaving Tom speechless. Before Tom could gather himself, Miss Murray took the microphone at the center of the field. She cleared her throat, then tapped the microphone to test it, her eyes sweeping across the crowd. "I want to welcome everyone on behalf of the Maplewood Soccer League. Today, we celebrate community and kindness, the kind that we see in small acts every day. Those acts have kept me hopeful, and they gave me the courage to keep pushing forward. I also want to thank the person who's posted those little notes of kindness all over Maplewood, reminding us that we're better than we often realize." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. "I don't know who you are," she continued, "but you've ignited something special. Because of you, we raised enough money today to buy new gear for the kids." Applause erupted, and Miss Murray wiped a tear from her eye. "If that person is here, I hope they know how grateful we all are. Thank you for encouraging us to see the good in ourselves." At that moment, Tom felt an impulse, equal parts nervousness and responsibility. He saw the crowd's love radiating like a bonfire, warming him. He took one step forward, then another, until he reached Miss Murray's side. With a gentle nod, he whispered into her ear. Her eyes widened, her mouth forming a silent "Oh!" before a beaming smile broke across her face. She handed him the microphone, and Tom cleared his throat, the hush around him intensifying. I, "I'm Tom," he began, unsure of how to phrase it. "I've been delivering the mail here for a long time, and I've had the enormous privilege of seeing everyone's everyday acts of kindness. A lot of folks think Maplewood's just an ordinary place, but I've seen something extraordinary in each of you. For years, I kept a little notebook." Here he paused, pulling it from his coat pocket, "where I wrote all the good I noticed. Big things, small things, and everything in between. I never meant for it to be a public thing. I only wanted to remember, so I wouldn't forget how wonderful this place truly is." Tom saw tears glisten in the eyes of many neighbors. Some pressed hands to their hearts, others reached for loved ones nearby. "Recently," continued Tom, "I realized that just as you all inspired me, you could inspire each other, if you only knew how much goodness lived all around you. So I started sharing snippets here and there. I didn't expect all of this. I certainly didn't expect to be standing here today." He paused, scanning the familiar faces, so many individuals who had shaped his own hope. "All I want to say is thank you. Thank you for being the people you are. Thank you for your generosity, your compassion, and your ability to make someone else's load a little lighter. You might see it as small, but it means the world to somebody." He finished speaking, almost breathless with nerves and relief. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the clapping began, hesitantly at first, but it rose quickly into a thunder of applause. Tom saw Miss Pemberton wiping her eyes, while Mr. Bradley patted her shoulder. He caught sight of the Carlisle children, Lucy and Samuel, smiling proudly, and Miss Keene giving him a gentle wave from the sidelines. Everywhere, neighbors exchanged hugs and cheers. The applause carried on, filling Tom's ears with a warmth he wasn't used to, a symphony of gratitude. After the cheers died down, one of the teenagers from the Maplewood Helping Hand stepped forward. "Tom," she said, a bit shy but determined, "we just want you to know that everyone here, want to keep this kindness going. And, well, we'd be honored if you shared some of the stories from your notebook, so we can all see how to support one another better. Heads nodded in agreement, and neighbors leaned in to hear Tom's response. Even the children looked at him with wide eyes, anxious to hear more examples of the good that thrived in their midst. Tom hesitated. He knew the notebook's contents were personal. Yet the entire point was to shine a light not on individual triumphs, but on the community spirit as a whole. So he agreed, yes, I'll gather the stories to share if everyone is comfortable with that. Maybe we can figure out a way to write them up or display them somewhere as a reminder of who we are. A round of cheers erupted. Now that they finally knew it was Tom, they teased him good-naturedly for being so stealthy all these years. In the following weeks, Maplewood blossomed with fresh enthusiasm. Tom worked with Miss Marie, Mr. Chen, and several others to compile a scrapbook from his notebook. They invited neighbors to share their own experiences, good deeds they'd done, or moments when they had been on the receiving end of kindness. Photos started pouring in. A hug between two longtime friends, a porch stacked with donated groceries for a struggling family, children untying a stray dog's tangled leash, a father cheering from the sidelines at a soccer match. The tapestry of Maplewood's goodness grew richer as each individual colored in their thread. They planned a gallery event at the library, setting up stands where people could read through the compiled scrapbook pages. Delicate strings of fairy lights illuminated photos and handwritten stories attached to corkboards. The turnout was astonishing. Families crowded in, pointing out images of themselves or friends, laughing and tearing up in equal measure. The library staff joked that they'd never seen this many visitors at once, and Miss Keene proudly walked around, ensuring new arrivals found space. Over in a corner, local volunteers served tea and homemade cookies, urging everyone to feel at home. In the middle of the festivities, Tom found himself standing with Miss Marie by a display that read, "Community of Kindness." He saw lines from his original note cards pinned up in decorative frames. Each phrase recalled a memory of the day he recorded it, out on his delivery route, unassuming but awakened to the subtle miracles of human connection. Miss Marie nudged him gently. "You know, Tom," she said in her gentle voice, "it's funny how we think we see everything there is in our little neighborhood, but until you shared your perspective, I had no idea just how many wonderful deeds were happening all around. You gave us the gift of turning on the lights in a place we thought was already bright." Tom nodded. "I'm just grateful we all get to see what we're capable of when we look out for one another. People are good. Sometimes they just forget it for a while." As the evening at the library drew to a close, the crowd filed out, pockets and heads full of renewed optimism. People lingered on the sidewalk, conversation lively in the lamplight, forging fresh connections. A few joined Miss Murray in final tidying duties, while toddlers dozed on their parents' shoulders. Tom carried a box of leftover cookies to place in the lounge for the librarians. Miss Keene, as usual, stepped outside, briefly to feed a wandering tabby that had come near the door. Tom stood by the library's entrance, looking around at the neighbors who had become friends and co-dreamers. He recalled the day Miss Pemberton first moved in, the day Mr. Bradley spoke kind words to her, spurring small acts that grew into bigger acts. He remembered the soccer field's day of fundraising, that turning point in Miss Murray's burdens. He thought of the Carlisle children sending seeds to their grandma, and young Sam drawing colorful chalk hearts on the sidewalk. All of it had seemed minuscule on its own, but now, woven together, it was a magnificent pattern of compassion. He clutched the old notebook to his chest, feeling both the weight and the buoyancy of countless stories. Before leaving, Tom stepped outside into the chilly air. The stars were out, and the street lamps glimmered in the darkness, reflecting off the polished windows of parked cars. He looked up at the neighborhood, where lights in living rooms glowed behind curtains, testifying to innumerable small joys in progress. Tonight, Maplewood's heart felt more visible than ever. Its essence was not in the meticulously trimmed lawns or the symmetrical streets, but in the people's shared willingness to lift each other up. Making his final round of goodbyes, Tom turned and headed for home, the old satchel on his shoulder, but a new hope burning in his heart. He had spent years chronicling the hidden kindness in Maplewood, and now that kindness was out in the open, shining freely for all to see. If the world beyond Maplewood felt harsh or uncertain, He believed the flame that had been lit here could spread, one good deed at a time, until every forgotten alley and lonely porch found itself illuminated with compassion. And what an honor it was to witness it, step by step, day by day, letter by letter, in a place that understood kindness was never truly small.